Welcome back, everyone, to episode 39 of the Minot Business Podcast, presented by Bennett Creative Media. I'm your host, Easton Bennett. On the show today, we have Monica Blake. Monica, how is it going today?
I am doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Before we get into the questions, I just want to ask you guys if you could rate and review the show if you enjoy it. It really helps a lot with getting the show out there, getting some new listeners, and also drawing in new guests for you guys to listen to on the show. So let's get into the questions. Monica, for someone that's never met you, they have no idea what you do. What do you do?
Yeah, it's a great question. So my official title, I am the general manager and managing partner of the Minot Tots baseball team. So Minot Tots are a summer collegiate baseball team in the Northwoods League. So basically that is college athletes that come down and play during the summer. The reason they do that can be for all sorts of things, to get recognized by scouts and help them get drafted, to maybe they're a redshirt freshman on the team down at their college and they want to get more at bats and get better and be the starter. So people come for all sorts of reasons. But as the general manager, it's funny, a lot of baseball general managers do a lot of recruiting and like the coaching side of things and getting players and that side of things. But in summer collegiate baseball, I'm really on the business side of it. So we let our coach kind of handle all of the recruiting, all of the team building and everything like that, getting the guys up here. Our coach handles all of that and I handle all the business side of it. So one of my big roles is our sponsorship, sales and development side of things. So I meet with local business owners to talk about really how we can help them. And our types of like advertising and promotions that we do are just really different than your traditional advertising, what we can do with a baseball team. So really I get to come up with like really cool ideas and then pitch them to business owners and really see what a mutually beneficial thing could be to help them. So that's a big part of my job. But I also do just a lot of other stuff too. We've got 6 full-time people running the team right now, which is more than a lot of teams our size, but I came from a team that had 16. So yeah, it's we just kind of all juggle a lot of different balls and wear a lot of different hats, and so yeah.
So the team you came from was the Larks, correct? Because I did a little bit of creeping on you on LinkedIn and online because I like to research for the show. So it was the Larks, correct?
Yep. I worked for the Bismarck Larks for 4 years.
Okay.
And then, so I did a lot of different stuff with them. I kind of got into it right in the middle of COVID. So I came up to Bismarck to plan events. And then COVID happened. So obviously that wasn't exactly my route, but I did everything from sponsorship, sales and activation to ticket sales to some operation stuff. And then eventually I was running our event company down there called Fanatics Events. So it's actually a separate business than the Larks, but within the same office and structure and everything like that. So, yes.
So are you from North Dakota then, or where did you come from?
I am originally from Omaha, Nebraska, actually.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So then did you go to Bismarck just for the Larks position, or what brought you to North Dakota?
It's kind of a good story. So I am from Omaha, Nebraska, born and raised my whole life, and I wanted to go somewhere like warmer, right? And so I went to school in Southwest Missouri at Missouri State University, go Bears.
Yep.
And that got me a little bit warmer. But while I was there, I studied entertainment management with an emphasis in sports. So I knew I wanted to do either events or sports, something in that industry. Wasn't really sure what. And as a junior, we had to get an internship. And so I was looking at different internships, applied to different places in like Vegas and Miami and all these different places that I thought I wanted to work.
Yep.
And I, got through quite a few rounds in some of those, but I wasn't offered any of those positions. And when I was looking, a guy named John Bollinger, the majority owner of the Larks, he actually graduated from Missouri State University in the entertainment management degree.
How fitting. I
know. And he talked in one of my classes and I was like, you know what? It's all about who you know, right? That's what they always say. So I was like, I know I'll get that one. So, I'll just apply. And then since I didn't get the other ones, I was like, okay, like, kind of weird. I'll go up to Bismarck, North Dakota. And I really just fell in love with what the Larks kind of did and really what they were able to create for the community. And so I came up and started working. I finished my last semester of school, came up and started working for them full time. But again, when I came up there, I think it's all about, especially in like sports industry, it's all about like taking the leap and taking the position that might not be exactly where you think it is to get to where you want to go. And so when I initially came up, to Bismarck, at least, I thought, hey, this is a position I probably wouldn't get with a major sports team for 5 to 10 years after I got that experience.
Okay.
But I'll come up to Bismarck and I'll do it for a couple years and then I'll go do something else. And now I'm probably here for the rest of my life. So
because that's
a little bit of a story, but
that's what I was wondering as far as positions go. So obviously you had a goal coming out of school on a general idea of where you wanted to go. What does that look like for going up in the ranks in the sports industry? Do you start at the bottom and kind of go there, or how does that?
Yeah, it kind of depends like what you want to do. But a lot of times if you want to work in sports, so what I used to say my dream job was to be the managing director of the Final Four or the Super Bowl. So I wanted to plan like large scale sporting events. But to do that, usually you have to go through this horrible process of like, okay, I got to get in at ground level with the sports team doing like entry level ticket sales, like getting paid nothing and like just work your way up. And it takes a long time because again, people are in these roles that have been there for a while usually.
Yeah.
And so again, that was kind of my plan. But when I came up to Bismarck for my internship, they had a position that was opening to like run this event company.
Yeah.
And so again, I was like, okay, well, even though it's Bismarck and the events are smaller, again, I wouldn't be able to do this for a team usually for 10 years with experience. So that was kind of my thought process behind it. But typically in the sports industry, yeah, you work in entry level ticket sales and kind of work your way up. So it depends. I know I met the managing director of the Final Four and she was actually from Nebraska. So I was like, this is what I want to do.
Yep.
But she like did an internship with the Olympics and then got a job with Nike for like 17 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then she moved into like NCAA sports and became the managing director. So there's a lot of different ways you can do it. Obviously she was probably entry level at Nike and became like an executive over the years, but yeah, kind of gives a good idea, I guess.
So that's what I was wondering. I have a friend that just took a position with the Houston Astros and he's in their scouting department. And eventually he obviously wants to work in the front office. I'm like, that's got to be just a long grind.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And scouting is really interesting because it's so, honestly, good for him because it's kind of the cool side of most people think when I used to tell people, like I'd tell my parents, friends and stuff like, oh, I'm studying sports management. Yeah. And they'd be like, are there jobs in that? Which like, it's so funny because the sport industry is massive and there's tons of jobs, but it is really competitive. But most people don't get to work on like the sports side of it. We work in the front office, but even with him, he'd probably, if he's really good at scouting, he'd probably move into different management positions and things like that. So kind of just depends. With the bigger teams, there's a lot more options, obviously. With smaller teams, I always say, if you're really good, we'll try to keep you around as long as possible, no matter what that title may become. So yes.
Okay. So was it always baseball for you then, or were you willing to go into any sport?
I was willing to go into really anything. I actually prefer football to the others too. But being from Nebraska, like, I don't know if you know this, but like Nebraska Cornhusker football is like,
I've heard.
Oh yeah. You like live and die by the Huskers, which is really unfortunate because we're really bad right now.
Didn't they just fire their coach or
yes,
something?
We did. Okay. And we haven't won a national championship since the year I was born, but besides the point. So I grew up watching. Yeah, I know.
Born, it's like, no
I
more.
really think I might have been. So,
so you went from Bismarck to Minot. How did you take your experience from working for the Larks to now your position here for the Hot Tots?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the interesting thing about Bismarck is and I wasn't there for the first year. I was there starting in year 3 for them. But when they got to Bismarck, there hadn't been like baseball like that for over 20 years. Okay. We're coming into the Minot market, Minot just had summer collegiate baseball and have kind of a thought in their brain of what that means. Now, the Northwoods League is one of the most established summer collegiate leagues in the country. It's quite a bit different than the product people have seen, but I think that would be one maybe like adjustment going from, again, this viewpoint of everybody knows who the Larks are in Bismarck, they love it and everything like that, and how do we show people what that is before we even have a game here? I think that would be one adjustment just coming up to Minot, but really, I think we can use a lot of the stuff, and we have used a lot of the stuff that we learned in the last 6 years in Bismarck, in a similar market, right? Bismarck's not the exact same as Minot, but it's similar enough that we can take those things that we've learned and make adjustments and really start, maybe a couple years ahead of where we were at when we first started the Larks. So
because then you're not going through those beginning baby steps where you're still figuring things out, where you kind of have an idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to talk about the Hot Tots name a little bit. How many names did you guys go through? Was there a list? What did that process even look like?
Yeah, there was like over 300 names submitted. So we did a team name contest. We had like 350 or so names submitted. And there was a lot of different names in there. Obviously the Hot Tots is not something that, I'll tell you what, like, when I was going into this team name contest, I was not like, we are going to name the team the Minot Hot Tots. I didn't even know that name existed out in the universe yet. And so we did have some ideas, and actually all of our ideas that we had beforehand were submitted. But basically we went through all of the names. There was a lot of like, mallards, missiles, like what your stereotypical baseball name would be. One thing, we do have the Madison Mallards in the Northwoods League, so that wasn't an option for us. But even so, we're a lot different than many teams, and we are different than the Mallards teams that have been here. And again, I think people will see that when they go to a game.
Was there a Minot Mallards team in Minot before?
Yes, that's a good question. So there was actually multiple Minot Mallards teams. There was, I think, 3 or 4 different teams called the Mallards in Minot.
Well, maybe there's a hockey team called the Mallards. I don't even know.
There was baseball teams prior to the Sabre Dogs. There was like multiple different baseball teams called the Mallards. I don't know. The most recent one was in the 90s, but yeah. So we wanted to choose a name that related back to the city of Minot in North Dakota, and then also we wanted to choose something though that really reflected like who we are and who we're trying to be. So anybody that pays attention to like minor league baseball or summer collegiate baseball, there's been this trend. So the Savannah Bananas, the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp, the Portland Pickles, and the reason is because it's about family-friendly entertainment. It's not really about baseball. Like, we have really good baseball, but we're not going to get thousands and thousands of diehard baseball fans in a town like Minot, right?
Oh, exactly.
But we're going to get a ton of people that want to come make memories with their family and have fun and eat tater tot hot dish at the ballpark and have a good time with it. And so someone submitted the Minot Hot Tots name, and I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, huh.
Interesting.
And I was like, interesting. I was like, but what is it, what does it mean? Because I was like, if it's just tater tots, like, we can't be the Minot tater tots, it doesn't make any sense. But then when we kind of hot dish, tater tot hot dish, big thing in North Dakota. So we just kind of like saw it, and there wasn't really an explanation to it from the person that submitted it. And we honestly just ran with it, and we started loving it. And again, we submitted it as one of the top 5 names, and then it got a lot of traction. It was the top name that was voted on as well. So it came down to that or the Dak Rats. Those were the top 2.
Rats. I like the Hot Tots better.
Yeah, me too. So the Dak Rats would have been fun, but no one wants to be a rat.
Well, exactly. That's what I was just thinking. Like, rat almost has this negative connotation.
Yeah, exactly.
In the hot dish, dish kind of goes along a play on words for the dish being a home plate in baseball. I like the play on words. Yes. And you guys have done some other plays on words, correct? So some unique marketing. Yes. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a rock star that I think you know. Well, I know that you know, but Emily Love. So she is our content marketing manager, and she is so creative. Like, honestly, you should have her on here talking about all her ideas that she has. But she is awesome, and truly, like, I'm not really that creative when it comes to that side of things. And so when you have somebody that's like, oh my gosh, like, become a spectator and, all that, this is spudtastic and like all these things, I'm like, oh my God, like, this is exactly what I was thinking, but like, I don't have the brain to like make that come up and make it a thing. And so she's just done a great job. Anyone that listening should go check out our social media too, of just the branding with the colors and the Tot background logos and everything like that. So yeah, I mean, there's a million ties, and that's why we chose the name too. It's like, there's a million things you can do with that. Spin-offs, and like, what can we serve at the ballpark that people will remember? We've talked about doing like a giant fried like tater tot thing. So yeah, there's a ton of different things, and it's super exciting. So
pivoting a little bit, transitioning to, obviously you're talking about Emily, and I've had experience working with her. She's super awesome. What is it like? Why is it important to hire good people? And how do you hire good people?
It's a great point. So we do most of our like full-time staff hiring on a website called Teamwork Online. So again, it's really sport focused. A lot of people from like across the country looking for sports positions will apply there. So that's usually where we get like the best talent is on that website specifically. However, Emily's from Minot, which honestly like rarely happens. Like not just in Bismarck, not just in Minot, but in our other markets in the Northwoods League, it's hard to find these like gems that like are in these small communities that want to work in sports and like have this brain for what we're doing. Sorry. And so again, we do the hiring process. We do multiple interviews with every single person, and we don't really count anyone out because again, with the Northwoods League, you don't always have to have the most experience. Some of our people in the office right now that have been really great so far really only had like internship experience because again, we're a smaller league. So we're not going to hire the executive that has worked somewhere for 10 years. Like we're going to give somebody a chance and hopefully that they play out. But I would say like, honestly, back to your original question, hiring good people is so important, especially with small businesses, because you can't do everything. So you have to have the people that are there that are going to champion what you're doing and are going to really just pick things up themselves and run with it. And honestly make decisions on their own and really just make it their own. So I think it's honestly one of the most important things you can do is hire good people.
I like the word champion, champion kind of the same direction that everybody's going into. So what does the day-to-day tasks look like for being an executive in the sports industry?
So right now, it kind of depends if you're in like the sales side of things in sports or if you're more in like the activation, I guess, or like operation side of things. So specifically on the sales side of things, I try to have 10 to 15 meetings with business owners every single week, which again, in a community like Minot, to do that for 6 months, I've met a lot of people. It's hard to do too. So we typically, me and then our corporate sales manager will both be meeting about 10 businesses a week each. And so I'm out of the office for usually 10 to 15 hours during the week talking to different businesses. And then you've got to prospect those businesses. You have to do follow-ups with those businesses. You have to create proposals and create the idea. So one thing that we do differently too is I'm not just going in there with like a one pager that says, hey, here's a sign that you can buy. Yeah, exactly. We come up with a completely custom proposal that fits into one of our levels of sponsorship that has like multiple different ideas in there that relate specifically back to that business and how to accomplish their goals. So for instance, for Shields, we don't just go into Shields and say, hey, buy this sign and, do these tickets. We say, hey, Shields, we know that your goal is to get people into the store and to spend money, right? And to see a return on that. So we put together a promotion where people can go into Shields, spend $25 and get a free Hot Tots hat. The only way you can get a camouflage Hot Tots hat.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a mouthful. I didn't realize it till just now. But then they can see, okay, that's our actual return on investment on that. And then we also, put together different things that we're doing in the game for them and where their signage is and all of that stuff too. So, so it's quite a bit of work, just the sales process itself. But other day-to-day stuff, the big thing that I also handle is our like budgeting. And again, will be a small business owner. I'm a 1% owner at the moment. So I get to buy into ownership. But again, I mean, the overall goal to stay here for a really long time, you still have to be a profitable business, right? So we can do all the great things in the community, treat everyone 100% right, but you still also have to make money and keep your staff employed and do all of those things correctly too. So just watching all of those items as well is a big responsibility of mine too. So,
and I really like your answer about going into these sales meetings, because I think there's a lot of times when you go into these meetings, you wonder, how are people actually getting a return on their investment? Because like you said, if you were to come to me, Bennett Creative Media, just buy the sign that's in the outfield, well, what does that really get me? I'm not really sure. So I really like the idea of personalizing things. Do you have if you had to give like a one-line piece of advice for people that are going into meetings with clients, what would you tell people that are maybe just getting into the business industry? Maybe it's someone that just graduated college or something in that nature.
I think one thing, and it kind of goes back to that personalization, and it doesn't really matter what you're selling, but the old school way of like doing like business meetings, especially in sports, but in really a lot of industries, was let me have like an intro meeting where I go in there and ask the person, hey, what can we do for your business, right? And that's like very typical, but we don't do that because honestly, like if someone came in to my office trying to sell me something and said, what can we do for your business? I'd be like, I am so busy.
Yeah.
I don't want to think about what you can do for me. I want you to tell me what you can do for me, right? And how you
should
can
have
help
already known.
me.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I think just thinking outside the box of like most of these businesses, whether it's an excavating company or Shields, you can probably guess what their goals are, right? You can probably guess, okay, is it that they, want to give back more to their employees or do more fun stuff for their employees? Or is it, hey, like I can tell on their website, they're really community oriented and they did this big donation. Like, how can we tie it in there? Or is it, hey, it's Shields and they obviously have to get people in the store spending money. So I think just going into the meeting, like doing research on the company, like every time we have a prospect, we go to their website, literally do as much searching as we can, stalking them.
Yep.
I sometimes even like go to their Facebook and I'm like, oh, like what are they? What do they've got kids, they've got grandkids.
Oh,
They've
they're
got
Vikings fans.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, they're huge Twins fans. Great. That's obviously a great thing for me when I'm going in there to talk about. Yeah, exactly. So that would be a big piece of advice for people going in, meeting with businesses and things like that. I would say. So
there you go. Do your research beforehand before you go in blind. Be like, hey, let's do business together.
Yes,
and then they look at you like you have three heads.
I think the other thing too that I didn't say is how can you and it's kind of tied in, but like how can you make them feel important? I am reading this book called it's really an old book, but it's How to Win Friends and Influence People. Have you read that?
I haven't, but it's a business staple.
Yes,
it's on my list.
It is. You should definitely read it. I'm only like halfway through, but it's all about like how like no one cares what your problems are, right? Like they care what their problems are. So how can you like make them see that like you're going to help them solve their problems? That's really like
instead of being like, well, it's beneficial. You just fully have to dive into how can I fix this person's problems?
Yeah, exactly.
Because fixing their problems is eventually going to fix yours.
That's right.
It should. So talk to me a little bit about partnering with people. So when you're growing the Hot Tots brand and you have to go out into the community, are you building partnerships or is it strictly sponsors or what does that look like?
Yeah. So we love doing business with people that do business with us. So we want this to be, I mean, most of the time when we're doing business with people, we want it to be like beneficial on both sides. So again, it's not going to be if we're meeting with a company that we're going to do something with and it totally doesn't make sense for them to advertise. For instance, like a Cisco or something like that, where we're going to buy a lot of food from them, but whatever. That's totally fine. We're not going to be like, no, you have to advertise or else, we're not going to buy from you. We want it to be mutually beneficial partnership. So what a lot of companies do is, again, we try to find those things that can be mutually beneficial. And maybe it's that they have employees in town or clients in town that they can bring out to games and we can build ticket packages for them and things like that. So, so that's one kind of way to think about it. But we think of like all of our sponsors as partners. Again, it's, yes, they're giving us money, right, to advertise for them. But again, how can we be a good partner to them? And like, I mean, I'll just go out to say like we have a partnership with like Wesley Ford right now, and they're one of our founding partners. So again, like if somebody in the office is looking for a car, they might not specifically buy them from Wesley Ford, but they're at least going to go give them a shot and look in there and consider it. So again, whether it's a personal thing that all kind of ties together, we try to support our sponsors and our partners in any way that we can. So it's kind of a blanket statement, but
no, I like that. And I want to add some actionable advice to this now, going back to people that are maybe coming out of college or whatever. How can they start to build these important relationships with people in the community? Do you have any advice for people that maybe they don't know a lot of people to get out there and start meeting these important people? Yeah,
it's a great question. There's a lot of different ways that you can do it. If you're into like service organization type stuff. Okay. So I'm not from here. So when I moved here, I didn't know anybody. I was the same thing with Bismarck. So I could just sit in my house and like only meet the people that I set meetings with. But I actually, so I'm involved in Magic City Networking. So we meet every Thursday morning and it's a networking group, pretty much all business owners or else like basically similar of that as a business owner. And it's exclusive too. So like if you're a lawyer, you're the only lawyer in there. So then all of those people really like make a bond and a connection with each other. And then if I'm going to recommend a chiropractor, I'm probably going to recommend the chiropractor in my group. Right. So those are really good to get involved in. Like, even if you're not a business owner, you can be involved in those groups. And then the other ones would be like Sertoma and Kiwanis and Lions Club and things like that. Because a lot of times, like, there's not a lot of like 21, 22-year-old people in there, but like the people that are in there, like, really respect people that are doing that too. So like, if you don't know anyone, like, just go join one of those groups. It's like not super expensive to do. And like, honestly, the other thing too is like, go out and volunteer in the community too. Or like we did the Boo at the Zoo event and met like thousands of people that day. So like, just putting yourself out there and like, again, joining these groups and making these like little micro moments, I think sometimes is better than like emailing someone being like, hey, I'd love to grab coffee. Like, go figure out what they are doing and then like run into them and be like, oh my gosh, hey, you're the owner of so-and-so. Like, would you mind grabbing? They're going to be like, who is this kid? Like, this is so cool. Like, I'm interested in getting to know them. So there's a lot of different stuff you can do, but you got it.
Again, it goes back to the stalking. It's really comes down to, if you stalk people that you want to meet, eventually you can line it up.
Yes, absolutely.
We're going to take a quick break to hear from this week's sponsor, Midco. There's no time for downtime in our fast-paced business world, so why settle for anything less than ultra-smooth, ultra-reliable business technology backed by a team of dedicated industry professionals? Midco Business Services are here to work around the clock with built-in redundancy to provide the ultimate peace of mind while you run your business. Start with a free consultation to explore our adjustable service plans at midco.com/business. I've been a Midco business user ever since I started my business, and I've never had any issues. So if you guys are really looking to see what Midco has to offer, go to midco.com/business today. All right, let's get back into the questions here. So we talked earlier about you delegating the task of recruiting and finding players to the coach. What does that look like?
Yeah. So first you got to hire your coach, which is a big process in itself. So we hired our coach back in about November. And so we really wanted someone up here. Again, some teams in the Northwoods League do more of the recruiting on like the front office side of things. But the way that we run our teams, we knew that was not what we wanted to do. Plus I would not be good at that. So with that said, we really needed someone that we would love to have somebody that we know, because a lot of times when you know somebody, you know what to expect from them. Right. And so we actually ended up hiring somebody that had been an assistant coach in Bismarck and actually had played in Bismarck for the Bismarck Larks. So pretty cool. I knew him personally, as well as all of our team members down in Bismarck. His name is Mitch Gallagher. So he had a really good career in college. He played for Xavier, so Division I program, and then he played in the Northwoods League when he was in college. So has the background of knowing too about the Northwoods League, kind of in that more like intimate sense of not just knowing, hey, here's what it is, but I've actually been there and done it. And here's why you should come up here and do it. Yep. And so that's the route that we went. He currently is so one thing a lot of people don't know is if you are a head coach of a college program, you can't be a head coach in the Northwoods League. Yeah. So it's not like we can go out there and get like the head coach at Arkansas or like these different programs. It's just not allowed because, again, it's a training grounds for not just players, but coaches and umpires. Yeah, exactly. And so also they can't have been major league coach either, which is pretty obvious, but
you guys can't get Ron Gardner.
Right. Exactly. But yeah, so with that, he's the recruiting coach for a really good JUCO program in Florida. And so the cool thing about that is, again, a lot of his job is recruiting. So he has to have connections with big programs, Division I programs. And really it's all about like building the trust with the programs too. So we're in our first year. So again, it's great that Mitch knows some of these people and has been able to make the connection with like Creighton and Illinois and these different areas. But the goal would be, how do you get your connection at, like an Arkansas or, there's a ton of different Vanderbilt, all these different programs. How can you get the connection with them where they know, hey, I'm going to send my guy up there. He's going to be with a great host family. He's going to get fed really well. He's going to have great training. He's not going to get hurt. And he's going to come back and be a better player. And how do you get those people to send you their two best guys, not just the two that are at the bottom of the roster too. So it's all about building that relationship, creating a really cool experience for them. And so again, year after year, we feel like we do a really good job of that down in Bismarck, and we'll use the same strategies up here as well of really creating that good experience. And guys want to come to teams that have a big crowd. You're trying to mimic a minor league experience. So they play 72 games in 76 days. The travel is pretty crazy, especially for the teams over here in North Dakota. And they're living with the host family, and they're playing in front of a really lively crowd most nights. So again, it's a really great experience for them, but you got to kind of show them that too. So
72 games in 76 days.
Yes, it's pretty crazy.
4 off days. Oof.
Yeah, pretty much for the whole season. Yeah. So
my body couldn't take that. I used to play baseball in high school, and oof.
Well, exactly. And so then a lot of guys, if they have never done that, they go into minor league baseball and they get torn apart and they get injured because they haven't done it. So again, it's really to try and prevent that.
I suppose minor league baseball is similar to the MLB, where 162 games they play in, I don't know how 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, I don't know the exact number, but it's honestly very similar structure to what we have. I know probably have 4 off days every 70 days or whatever it is. So yeah.
Hey, that's good that you're getting them into that lifestyle.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we're talking about, dealing with all the moving pieces, from baseball ops to players to hiring to host families. How do you make that all go together? How do you manage that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot, definitely, and you never want to drop the ball on anything. But again, it's all about delegating these things out too, and really making your people feel like they can own something, right? So like if I was standing over, I know we just talked about her, but if I was standing over Emily being like, I have to review every post and I want to make sure this and that, like she would never feel like she could really own anything and run with it. And also I would not have, I would be working 24/7. And so you have to, I have learned that a lot, even in the last couple of years, as like a business professional, of delegating things when you need to. Cause I'm the person where if I'm sitting in a meeting and no one says that they'll do it, then I'll just say, okay, I'll do it.
Fine, I'll do it.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I've just always been that way, but yeah, you have to. So, for instance, with our host families, our game day staff, our interns, that side of things, the way that we do things is we work on like teams. So we have a team called our culture team, that is completely, it's almost like HR, but like it's our own employees doing it.
Yep.
So it's completely dedicated to the experience of people that aren't fans that are related to our team. So there's a whole nother fan side of things, but how do we make sure our host families, our players, our player parents, our game day staff, our interns, our front office, everybody that's involved in the organization, how do we make sure they have a great experience? So then there's 2 or 3 people on that team that again are kind of assigned the different areas in there and are, kind of running that and really owning those areas on their own. And that's kind of a side piece of their job too, right? We don't have like a full-time person dedicated to that. It's our activation person and our operations person, working together to make sure those things get done. So that's kind of an example, I would say, of how we make sure that all of those things get done.
I didn't even think about, obviously, when you go into a business like sports, a lot of this is like fans first, almost like the customer's always right. If you're going to a retail store, sports is always comes down to the fans. I didn't even think about the back end, but no, that makes a lot of sense, because if they're not having a good experience, then the business just...
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't have host families, you got to find housing for 35 kids for 70 nights during the year. And it's very expensive to do that if you don't have host families. So you want to treat those people right. And honestly too, like, again, Minot is a small town, right? If you have a horrible experience with 20 host families, like, good luck, because you're probably never going to find them.
Good luck finding more host families.
Exactly. Yeah.
So why do you think it's important to bring new experiences into the Minot area? Yeah. Whether it's the Hot Tots specifically or anything else new that comes to the city?
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of, I think people that live in Minot really love Minot, but there's still this stigma, whether it comes from the Air Force Base or from people that are from here, of there's nothing to do here. Or, some people say, again, I don't agree with this, but some people will say like, oh, Bismarck's better, or like, oh, I wish I lived down there, things like that. So I think that the more that we can do as all community members that are, interested in seeing the success of Minot for a very long time, the more things that we can bring to Minot so that isn't the stigma, the better, right? And that the Hot Tots in general, I think like it's literally like bettering the quality of life of people in Minot. And they might not see it that way yet, but I think they'll understand when they see what we do. It's not just 36 nights. We do things year round. We're doing a reading program that we have 4,000 kids. We haven't even had a game yet. We have 4,000 kids signed up for our reading program in March. Yeah.
Wow.
So again, we do things year round that are benefiting the community. And I think that Minot is like hungry for these opportunities to have these things and to have them in Minot. It's funny. We actually had down in Bismarck when I worked there last year, we have always done this reading program. And one of the schools on our list was Max. 20
miles away. Yeah.
20 miles away from Minot. And again, they loved it, had like 350 kids signed up. And so now obviously they're getting it where they'll actually be able to go to the game and the different things that we have and everything like that. So again, I think that Minot's hungry for it. I'm really excited. I'm all about like creating new experiences for people. Again, I wanted to go live in a big city with warm weather.
Yeah.
So I'm one of the people too that's like, oh, like how can we be the people creating better restaurants and more things to do and everything like that. So
and now you get warm weather 3 months out of the year.
Yeah, and I'm working all the time.
Yeah, there you go. And that's what I think people don't realize in your case specifically is that the Hot Tots play for 3 months out of the year, but it is a year-long thing.
Yes.
Which is good.
Yes.
I want to go into the marketing side a little bit. Really what I'm looking for here is not actionable advice, but advice people can take that are listening to the show. Marketing strategies that maybe have worked, haven't worked, anything you've experienced, anything that can shorten that learning curve for people that are trying to get their business or their brand out there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still finding out what works sometimes. So I think the main piece of advice that I would say is to try different things. And to, again, I think when something works, then that's when you keep doing that thing. So, I mean, what's the saying? I don't even remember who says it, Albert Einstein or something. That's like, you can't do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result or that's insanity.
Yep.
And so I think that's like what we kind of do is we're like, okay, hey, like, let's try this like different thing on Facebook that we haven't done before, or this different target audience, or this different newspaper ad that, you know, maybe though, like what we found is the newspaper ads that worked 5 years ago when the Larks first started, like they worked okay here, but like it wasn't like the response they were getting down there.
Yeah.
So again, if we just kept throwing the same ad out there and be like, well, I don't know why it's not working. Well, like,
change something.
Yeah, you got to change something. You got to try something else, try something new. And so I think just constantly adapting to that. And then I think the other thing too is in marketing, there's always different goals, right? So sometimes it's like brand recognition. Sometimes it's selling a product. Like obviously at the end of the day, you want to sell more of your product. But I think there's different really interesting ways that you can do that. And then too, like, I think most people, my biggest piece of advice is like when people hear marketing, what do they think? They think like social media, TV, radio, newspaper, right? Like, and mostly social media. But marketing is also like, hey, I'm going to go down to like one of our ideas that we're still working on is like, can we go down to the Region 6 basketball tournament where there's like a bunch of like small town people that are in there and Minot people? And how do we talk to these people and get in front of them and do a cool giveaway and so that we can market to them because we have their information and then send those messages to them. So again, I think grassroots marketing is like definitely not dead, especially in small towns. And I think that people forget about it. One of the events we did in Bismarck was called the Santa Run. And so I was like, why don't we just send someone dressed up as Santa Claus, like down the main street on State Street or what would be Broadway here with a sign that says like, sign up for the Santa Run, or like something that's really clever that gets people's attention where they're like, what is that? And then they go Google
stuff that's
like,
outside of the box.
Exactly. Yeah. And what did we have to pay for that? Nothing. $50 to get a Santa suit, right? Like, so yeah, I think there's just these different grassroots things that are really, you shouldn't look past. That would be my main piece of advice.
It comes down to, like you said, those parts of marketing. It is a lot of that. It's social media, it's billboards, radio, newspaper. But the more creative you can be with your marketing, I think the more effective that it is. Would you agree with that?
I totally agree. Absolutely.
So talking a little bit about goals now, was there a goal that when the Hot Tots started, was there a goal, a long-term goal for the team?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely like goals that are monthly and goals that are annually and things like that for the team. But again, I think that we just want to see the long-term success of the Hot Tots in general. I think like if you were to ask me a goal, I would say for the Hot Tots to be around forever, right? Like it's not something that like Minot, and I'm not afraid to say this, like the stigma is like, well, are you going to be here in 5 years? You know, because they've seen teams come and go. It's like, rightfully so, they're going to think that. Yeah. So like my goal would be like, again, how can we make sure this is around forever or for a really long time? Yeah. And that the community loves it and supports it. And it's doing all the things that, we need to do to be good community partners too. So that would be my big overarching goal, but
okay. So then pivoting into Monica specifically, do you have a long-term goal? Do you want to stay with the Hot Tots forever? Are you trying to get to an MLB team one day? What are your long-term goals?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Again, I used to say I wanted to go play in the Super Bowl. So, but I think, I'll be here working with the Hot Tots and in Minot for at least 10 to 15 years. So again, like that's long term for me because that's already, I'm young still. It's a big portion of my life. So that's really my immediate thinking is that. And I think in 10 to 15 years, I'll have a better idea if it's like, hey, I want to, this is my baby. I want to do this forever. I want, I want to be involved with the team for as long as I can be. Or if it's like, hey, maybe at that time, I just don't know right now. Like at that time I could say, hey, I'm going to go, work remotely from somewhere warmer, but then I hire a general manager that, runs the Hot Tots that I'm still involved with or, whatever. So, there's a lot of different kind of ways that could go. But right now I'm just really focused on like, again, I have a very rare opportunity to own a baseball team. Yeah. And so
which is exciting.
Really exciting. And again, like with the success that they've had in Bismarck, this could be something that I could do for the rest of my life. So, I don't know yet, but that's the plan right now. 10-year vision. I'll still be in Minot.
We'll check on you yearly for 10 to 15 years.
Sounds good.
And then we'll give the people an update. Only a couple more questions for you here. What would a successful 2023 look like for the Hot Tots if you end of the season you had to look back on it?
Yeah. There's a lot of different ways you can measure success. Obviously, as business people, like listening to this podcast, everybody knows like business has to make money, right? To stay in business. So I would say like running a profitable company in year one would be success. Obviously there's a lot of upfront costs to starting a baseball team. Our mascot costs like $7,000. Really? Like people don't think of those things, or like our smoker and our beer trailer and all of those things that, we're never going to have an expense again. So obviously that's really important in year one with a startup company. So that would be one goal of mine, running a profitable company. And then just other goals as well. We have goals for like ticket numbers and strategies and things like that. Corbett Field, I just talked to actually the mayor about this, but Corbett Field hasn't been sold out in a really long time. His estimate was back in the mid 90s when they had like a championship game for the Minot Mallards.
What does it hold?
So our sold out will be 1,200. It right now physical seats holds like 940. And then with our group areas and some different things that we'll it'll be a little bit more. But yeah, so it hasn't been, I don't know. That's just what I've been told is that it hasn't been sold out in a long time. And so our goal is to sell out Corbett Field like 10 to 15 times this year. And so again, that's sounds like a really lofty goal after what I just said, but with our ticket strategy and things like that, it's really doable. And the reason I say that's a really important goal for us is because when you go to a sold out sporting event, it's just a different experience. It's infectious.
Way better.
Yeah, way better. And you tell everybody about it and you say, oh my God, I don't even know what happened, but like it was so fun.
I don't know who won.
I have to go back. Like this is so cool. And so if you can do that, like 10 to 15 times in your first year, like it just makes a really big impact for the years to come. And so we want to give people that experience, and we think that we can do it by the way that we package our tickets and things like that. So that's another big goal of mine as well. So, and then the last thing would be, numbers aside, right? Dollars and cents, right? That's great. Obviously, we want to run a profitable business, but the big thing for us in year one is how do we make sure that every single person that comes to the ballpark has the best experience possible, whether it's on a sellout night or a night where there's not as many people there. We want to give everyone this phenomenal experience that, again, they come and they realize, okay, yeah, this is different. So that's what's honestly most important to us, because, again, I think if you treat people in Minot and other communities like this the right way, they'll support you and they'll be really loyal loyal, but
Oh, yeah.
they're a little skeptical, right? They're like, okay.
They like to dip their toe in the water.
Who's this like, who are these people? Who's this Monica lady?
It's
Like, let
foreign.
me see. Yeah. But then they're like, oh my gosh, look at like how cool this is for Minot. Like I'm in, you know? So I think that's really a really important point for us this year.
Well, we're pushing for you for 2023. Only 2 more questions here for you. What is one thing that you wish you knew when you started that you know now? Whether it be in your business journey in general or baseball specific.
Oh my goodness. That's my first one that I didn't have an answer right away.
I got her.
You got me. Yeah. Gosh, that's something I wish I knew.
It doesn't have to be anything crazy.
Yeah, I guess something I wish I knew about Minot maybe before like coming up here, again, is just, I think I wish I knew more about the community and kind of some of these things that I've learned. And again, it's been like all really good things, but I think like people joked with me before I came here. They're like, oh, like the Minot Mafia, like they're all kind of connected. And our majority owner always says like Minot and Bismarck are like, you know, when you meet like your in-laws, right? It's like, oh, like who is this guy? Like, I don't know. Do I like him? But then once you're in, it's like, oh, you're in, you know, you're part of the family. Yeah, exactly. And so again, I just, I think, again, that's nothing bad or anything like that. But I think just knowing more people and meeting more people and honestly like different things to get involved in the community, I wish I knew a little bit more about. But I think I'm learning along the way. And I think that eventually, and we'll get to that point. So yeah.
Perfect. And yeah, Minot is very welcoming. Once you get in there, once you actually jump into the pool, we'll welcome you with open arms.
Absolutely. And that's what I've heard. I've heard it's going to be the most loyal fan base in the Northwoods League. Jared Lundeen said that.
Well, hey, Jared was on the show a couple weeks ago, so we can hold that to him. And if not, we'll get him at the town square and we'll get rid of him.
There we go.
Last question I got for you. Mount Rushmore of business advice. If you had to go 4 pieces for someone that's going into the business world.
Gosh, yeah. I think people are your most important asset. That would be one piece of advice. I think that, again, like you as yourself as a person also have to be like constantly focusing on how can I get better and how can I meet more people and like, you know, when you're really genuine about something and you really care about something, like people can tell. So if you can get in front of people and really show them like, oh my gosh, I love this. And like, I leave the room and people are like, oh my God, that, you know what I mean? Like
that lady likes, she likes the hot tots.
It's pretty crazy. So I think again, just being like genuinely like caring about what you're doing is super, super helpful. So that'd be another piece of advice. Gosh, what else? 4 is a lot.
I know. That's why it's exciting.
Yeah.
5's too many. 4's just hard enough.
Yes,
you gotta think
absolutely. Gosh, I would say, okay. One of my professors used to always say, some really important things, like when you're young and like maybe it's in college or right after college, are who you date, who you spend your time around. And he'd say one other thing, but I think, oh my gosh, it's so important. Like, just literally like who you surround yourself with. I know that's like the most cliche thing, but like, I don't know, like when I was in college, I just feel like I have great friends from college still, but you know, there's like your party friends and you know, these people. And then like, if you immerse yourself into like the business world and you're like, I am going to surround myself with people that are like solely focused on like being the best freaking person they can possibly be. Like, it's just like crazy how your world changes. Like I mean, one example, again, I'm rambling, but my fiance, when I met him, like, again, I was really focused on what I was doing and so was he, but like, now it's like being around that. And like some of our friends that we had mutual friends with is like, oh, but then the other friends that are like in the same world as us were like, oh my God, we love spending time with them. Yeah. It's like, this just like, everything is so great and it's so awesome. So, it's really, really important. And then number 4, oh geez. I mean, I kind of said do something you care about and are passionate about. I kind of already said that. I would say, honestly, like the 4th one would be, I listen to like a lot of Gary Vee, which I'm sure you do as well. But
that's what got me into the business world, actually.
There you go. I love it. So one thing I really respect that he always says is like, people always ask him like, do you ever sleep? And he's like, what are you talking about? Yeah, I sleep 8-9 hours a night because like, that's really important for me to be successful and like keep doing what I'm doing. And it's not all about like, he's a totally like, you would think he'd be like, it's all about the grind and the hustle, which he does say that, and it is, but in a different way. It's like, it's all about the grind and the hustle, but you also have to like spend time with your family and you have to do the things you care about.
He talks about pulling from both sides all the time.
Exactly. And so I think that's one other piece of advice. It's like hustle and work hard doesn't necessarily mean like don't sleep and don't talk to your family. Yeah. And like don't do those things. So I think everyone has their balance, but I think that's another really just piece of advice that I really like from him and his stuff.
Perfect. There's 4. Last thing I got for, well, it's not even a question, but where can people find you? Where can they find the Hot Tots?
Absolutely. So we are at Hot Tots Baseball. That's hottotsbaseball.com. And then on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, it's HOTTOTS Baseball. And then also my information, like my cell phone number and email and everything like that is on the website for the Hot Tots. So if anyone ever has any questions or wants to meet up and get coffee or anything like that too, I am an open book and I'm excited to meet all the people I can in Minot. So definitely hit me up.
Well, don't just text her to ask for coffee. Bump into her somewhere and say, oh my gosh, you're the GM of the Minot Hot Tots, right?
That's right. There you go. I love it.
We'll put all of the links to those so you guys can check out the Hot Tots below in the description. Monica, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
That is episode 39 of the Minot Business Podcast. Again, please leave a rating and review if you like the show. It really helps the show get out there. We'll see you guys next week for episode 40.